another response video to Pyrrho. So I'll take care of a couple of things from his previous video, which I won't play, where there's just two things that really glaring that stick out in my mind. First, it said that I said that the DNA is completely focused on the individual, and I said right in the video, clan. I mean, I did say that, family, clan, that the DNA does extend that far in terms of creating emotional opportunity for huge bias, and that's very destructive. Okay, because we don't do the human race thing emotionally. We just do the cute human thing emotionally, my human thing emotionally. My woman, my family, it's there, and that prejudice and that bias is that creates all the conflict between the humans. Let alone the problem of the humans dealing with their conflict with natural fact. They can't even get along with each other. It's a big fucking problem. All right, second thing you mentioned was, you didn't like me dissing the pyramids. I really don't think you get it. Any job isn't a good job. All right, there's certain jobs that are productive, and this whole idea of cathedrals and pyramids is really stupid. Maybe you want to pay $1 trillion to look at a painting. I won't. Okay, fuck that shit. I don't need something that costs $1 trillion to look at. All right, so give me the 5-cent version, and I'll be satisfied. Let's build Hoover dams. Let's build. I know you know this shit, but yeah, let's spend the money on efficient infrastructure. Let's not spend the fucking money on aesthetic bullshit. Fuck that. I mean, really, fucking hard.
Okay, I'm gonna go through my comments to your video. First, when you started talking about, first of all, the gag is kind of a word. Okay, but adapting to the truth, you're like, there should only be adapting to the truth. Mine shouldn't adapt. But that's the thing, the truth changes. Even if in the whole world you want to say it doesn't change, you can try to make an artificial thing, like something that people need to drink fluids in order to survive.
Yeah, well, look, the point I was making was that there's nothing for our intellect to adapt to. Physically, we can do all kinds of adapting. We can even use our intelligence to adapt ourselves to another environment. That was sort of my point. The big problem, though, is there's no adaptation. There's no intellectual, mental way to turn this fucking pig's ass into something else, a pearl necklace. It just isn't going to fucking happen, right? So you can keep talking it to death, but the bottom line is this is consumption and reproduction without any fucking mission. The only thing we can do is clean up the messes we make. I've used that point before. We can play janitor in this universe, but there's nothing to do here but clean up messes. You make the mess by creating the addiction, all right? And you create the heroin addict, and you need to create the heroin. You need to create the mugging victim. You need to create the whole infrastructure so this asshole can chase his dragon that he's not going to catch. And that's my point, is that we can't adapt to the fact that there is no fucking dragon, there is no fucking catching, all right? There's only a contrived game, a stupid, idiotic, rats in a maze chasing their own ass bullshit. Yeah. You can't adapt to that. You can only come up with some sort of better way of doing something stupid. You can find a better clown suit to wear, something a little less obscenely, outrageously foolish, but you're still going to be a fucking clown. You're still going to be a fucking fool, as long as you try to play this stupid game. Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, but the truth you really are dealing with is this area has no clean water, or this area does, but only if you're clever about how you find it. Okay, so those are the truths you adapt to. When we're talking about the brain adapting, it's because you left one area, say there was political strife, no war, so you left that area and went somewhere else, and then there it's colder, so you have to adapt it to the truth that it's colder. So that's what we're talking about. And
no, that's what you're talking about. You're talking about finding some way to make the game work, and I'm talking about the fact that the game isn't going to work. And so those are two different subjects. And I'm saying even if you can make it work, it's got to be a lot more dramatic than coming up with drinking water. You're satisfied if half the population lives in shit. I'm not satisfied with that equation. That's not success. Again, survival is your mission. Survival is meaningless to me without substantial quality. The survival's got to have real good integrity for that survival to mean anything. We got to have damn good janitor tools and damn good janitor suits, and we got to, that's it. I mean, if we can't do the janitor thing right, we can't even do that. There's no point in even doing that.
That moves on to, you argued against this freedom of thought stuff, and maybe you're just being contrary, because you're talking about freedom of thought issues too. You can deny against it and all the determinism, but you're saying we can suppress. There's some sort of interaction of will.
All the determinism, like you talk about, like it's a casual, incidental problem. No, it's the game, really. Okay, I'm just saying that there's no real freedom. We're confined not only by what we're built on, the truth that somebody else has provided us, but we're also confined by the truth. And what I'm saying is that the logical truths, that the truths we are discovering, are compressing the world into a smaller and smaller and smaller little hole for us to look through. There's becoming less and less gap for us to find any unicorns now, any magical answers, any happily ever after. That's becoming so far away, so impossible to find with a real telescope. It can only be found if you have something with defects in it, a broken vision. That's the way you can find unicorns. It's like the UFOs, right? All of a sudden, UFOs aren't all over the place anymore. Why? Because now we have decent photography. Now we have real vision, and now you can't just make up bullshit out of dust and fairies and floaty nonsense. You have to make it out of something real for a change, and that's where the game changes. All of a sudden, just like happily ever after, the old UFO is disappearing over the horizon, never to be found again because it never really existed. It was just a piece of dust in our eyeball.
Substance, you're at the very least a compatibilist. which means sometimes we can just talk about the interaction of will and talk about things as freedom of thought, even if we ultimately think it's not free. That becomes a different logical argument. Okay.
Conceded, exactly. So, but I'm just saying you're the one that uses this rhetoric kind of casually, and I'm just saying that we have to be a little bit careful. I use it too. Okay, I mean I say it, but let's just be sure that when we have these conversations that we make sure it's in that context. And you were sort of breaking the context and sort of implying some sort of expansive freedom that we do not have.
So because you were using that as well, that there's a kind of a freedom of thought, and in terms of the freedom, it's no good to say, well, there's limitations, and I got language, and I couldn't have thought of it, and have these ideas from all these philosophers. True, but I mean, it's like philosophy of art as a philosophy of life. If you're going to...
See, that's another one of your statements. You just throw something like that out there, philosophy of art. Bullshit alert, button pressed, bullshit. Sorry, no. Art is crap. Art is the dust. Art is the diffraction. Art is a cracked lens. All right, it's completely subjective crap. All right, it is not objective crap. I mean, it's not objective truth. It's just something to tweak, to pleasure, it's a sense. It's a touchy-feely, crappy shit. Okay, it doesn't mean anything. It's you condition a person properly, and a tree slaw's vagina could be art.
You're going to do a painting. You have 5 tubes of paint. You have a canvas. You're going to say you're not free to paint what you want because the strokes have to go on the canvas and they're limited to 5 colors and what you can mix from it?
Well, again, we're not painting a painting. We're not able to just make up any kind of thing and say, ooh, pretty color. No, we have to find it's confined by the truth. This is just a very limited equation. You can't make this go anywhere. You can't just write any old dumb symbol. It is a narrow vocabulary. It's a narrow language. It's a narrow... you're confined by the structure of the truth, and that's my point. And that's what's making the world, the art world, of what you can slop on the canvas and call truth, is getting smaller and smaller because we are understanding the truth.
You can say you don't have freedom. No, you have remaining freedoms. These limits put in place some kind of stricture on what you're going to paint. And within those bounds, if you ignore the part that's free, you can say, look, I don't have freedom here. Yeah, that part's not free. You wouldn't call that free. But the part where you can put the strokes anywhere within that area, that's a freedom again. So freedom's never my model total anyway. Okay, so it's a straw man to be talking about a couple things that aren't free and say, see, there's no freedom. Yeah, there's no total freedom. But that realm of freedom still exists.
It's not a straw man to point out that we just can't find any solution. It's not any solution will do. Anything that makes us survive is the answer. My argument is no, we have other confinements. The confinement is there has to be a quality to the survival. There has to be that there's a ton of rules that are eliminating freedom. And one of the rules is accepting the bastard origin and what that creates, what kind of dilemma that creates. The fact that we are built out of addiction. That's not a good fucking thing. It's a bad fucking thing. And somehow we have to turn that pig's ass into something. And my argument is you're going to have to break the lens to turn it into anything because the truth says you're fucked by that fact.
You also said the price is too high for this life, and if that were true, forget the fact that people could commit suicide. Assume they don't commit suicide because, like you say, they're addicted. Okay, good defense of that. But,
yeah, damn good defense of that. That's right. But they'll survive in the concentration camps. They'll live through anything because that's what the biology is demanding. The DNA is demanding it. The intellect isn't demanding it. The biology is demanding it.
That's this whole reproducing in captivity. There's also this idea of death by what they used to call consumption, and just depression, and you stop eating, and you get weak, and you die.
Right, and that just isn't the natural state. You have to take something completely out of their element. You have to put a fish out of water almost to create that kind of circumstance. Or you have to take an animal that's just so dependent on an environment and take them away from all the natural things that make their life run. But there's not all that many animals that will take horrible deprivation and still fucking breed. I mean, there's only about 10, that we can't put in a zoo.
People can do that. We're pretty resilient. We keep choosing. Because I think a lot of people, if you're
choosing, again, you're using this word like we're making an intellectual choice. And again, this is where the words get fucked, because most of our choices are not choices of intellectual determination. They're choices between desire A and desire B, okay, or a desire and an intellectual understanding. I mean, I can know something's wrong and I'll still do it, or I can know it's selfish, or I know it's cheap, or I know it's petty, and I'll still do it because emotionally I need to do it. And those are the conflicts. But those choices are not pure choices. Again, those choices are being controlled by apes and lizards.
That the human attitude doesn't have to be this way. Lots of animals are sensitive. Take them out of their environment, they die. They're going to try to adapt their own programming to adapt. We do adapt. As a result, it's no surprise that our philosophy is more characterized by the fact that
it's not even necessarily that we adapt. It's just that if you take 6 million people, all right, yeah, 100,000 of them might survive a circumstance and continue to breed, and 5 million of them might die. All right, so you can't really say they adapted, okay, because it was only individuals that adapted, while the vast majority did not adapt. And that was the huge price of this adaptation, was there was huge non-adaptation. And so you can always hope, I think if we did that with any other species, if we were willing to kill off 500,000 great white sharks, we could probably find one that could take living in our domesticated zoos without dying. But we'd have to kill the 500,000 to do it.
We don't think the price is too high because we can wait it out, we can think about the future, we can invest in the future. So it's a problem because yes, it's living in the future, but it's one of the reasons we can survive. I also admit
well, again, remember, I mean, just think about what was the attrition rate on slaves imported from Africa? I mean, what percentage of them lived more than 3 years?
Lend more credence to your complaints because we, in terms of getting down to the cockroach world, there is some validity in thinking that humans would go ahead and endure and live in that kind of condition. But I have arguments against that as well, but I don't think that's what would happen.
Again, you don't think it would happen, but where's the evidence that it wouldn't happen? We're living cockroach existence now by any real rational standard. Most human beings are living in shit. All right, they're living a cockroach existence. Most people don't even shit in a fucking toilet. Come on, Pyro.
You mentioned that the ape and the reptile will use the brain like a hammer. And that's true, but see, this is where I also believe that the intellect needs to filter, control, duct.
Right, and there's no evidence that that's what human beings are doing. There's every evidence that they're acting on their nationalism, their bigotry. They celebrate that, okay? That sports, celebrity, popularity, Google. This is how the world runs. The popular run the world. There's no standards, okay? The standards are superficial, silly, nonsensical, illogical. They're completely emotional. Policy is completely driven by emotion. No rationality. Like I've said it before, but yeah, we'll waste $1 million to save a drug addict, you know, give him a liver transplant, and $1 million in practical fact will buy a few hundred lives in the world. And we just can't ever do the math honestly and intelligently. And that's just the fucking truth, Pyro. And we have every capacity to do it now, and we still can't do it. All right? People can really make real choices now with their real intellects. They can, you know, and they don't have to compromise their, you know, anything urgent. They don't have to live in the woods, and they don't have to, you know, freeze, and they don't have to do all this other stuff. That's not the burden, and they still can't play fair. They still can't be honest to the truth, even though they're not going to sacrifice any part of their guts.
You know, affect these